Hey everyone, let's jump right into this. Today, we're unpacking a story called The Broken House and the Meat Palau. Now, I know the title sounds like, just a simple village fable, but trust me, it's actually this profound, high-stakes look at human pride, the crazy allure of sudden wealth, and the incredibly heavy price of sacrificing your integrity. We're going to really dig into the psychology and the tension behind this classic morality tale. By the end of this explainer, you're going to see exactly why this specific kind of narrative hits so hard. So let's get into it.
Is he doing some illegal work? Think about that for a second. This one super ominous question gets dropped by just a humble village shopkeeper really early on, and it perfectly sets up the central mystery of the whole thing. Picture this. You've got this incredibly poor father who's just been bragging to everyone that his long-lost son is finally coming back from the city and he's bringing massive amounts of wealth with him. But instead of everyone just celebrating, the immediate vibe from the community is, well, it's deep suspicion. Like, how does a guy who has completely ignored his desperately poor family for years just suddenly show up with his pockets literally overflowing with cash? This question anchors us. It plants this little seed of doubt that, as you'll see, grows into an absolute catastrophe by the end.
Section 1. Returning home after many years.
Okay, so to really grasp the impact of the son returning, we have to look at the extreme contrast the story sets up. Let's look at the dad, Mahendra. His reality? He is living in absolute, crushing poverty. I mean, his house is literally broken, just falling apart around him. He faces daily humiliation, wandering the village trying to beg for a little rice and dal from the shopkeeper, all because he's been running a credit tab for 2 solid years. 2 years! He's just desperate to scrape together 2 handfuls of food for his returning son. Now flip that and look at Vikram, the son. He rolls into this dusty, struggling village in a massive car. He's flashing these huge wads of cash everywhere. And his first reaction to seeing his mother? He complains. He complains about the village dust, the heat. He totally brushes off his mom's affection, acting like this big city man who just can't stand village conditions anymore. It is honestly a masterclass in writing a highly unlikable, arrogant character who is completely disconnected from his family's actual suffering.
Moving into Section 2. The huge arrangement of meat palau.
So Vikram doesn't just want to be rich. He wants to make absolutely sure everyone else knows he's rich. He orders 15 to 20 kilograms of fresh, high-quality meat. Guys, that is an absurd, almost comical amount of food. That's enough to feed a small army. And he casually orders this from the village butcher, the exact same guy who literally just hours earlier had humiliated his dad for being too poor to buy the absolute basics. Vikram announces he's throwing this massive meat pulao feast for the entire village. It's this incredibly extravagant, totally out-of-place move for a family living in a broken-down shack. It's basically your textbook definition of new money overcompensation. And this wild extravagance creates such a fascinating dynamic to watch. Vikram forcefully pays off his dad's 2-year debt with these thick stacks of cash. He orders the massive feast, promises to fix the broken house, and even brags about marrying off his sister to a wealthy family. Now, to his face, the villagers' reactions are all shock and flattery. Suddenly, the butcher's calling him sir and complimenting his fancy city clothes. But underneath that shiny facade of respect, the whispers are getting louder. The villagers are, perfectly happy to eat the free food, obviously, but they are absolutely not buying that this sudden wealth is legitimate. Not for a second. Which brings us to Section 3, Suspicion in Villagers' Minds. The villagers in this story aren't just there to fill out the background. They actually serve a super specific, critical narrative function. In storytelling, we call this the Greek chorus. They watch Mahendra's blind joy and Vikram's arrogant flexing, and they actually voice the rational truth that the family is just totally ignoring. They hit the nail on the head. A kid from a poor background doesn't just magically stumble into duffel bags full of cash in the city by doing honest hard work. They openly speculate that this money comes from a really dark place. So all their gossip, those little side conversations, they're constantly foreshadowing the disaster that's coming. It's a warning to us that this whole meat palau feast is just a giant house of cards waiting to collapse.
Section 4. Unknown guests from the city.
Okay, so here's where things really start to escalate. The source of Vikram's sudden wealth finally catches up with him. Look at how fast this crumbles. In the afternoon, while Vikram is arrogantly hosting his big feast, there are hidden men from the city spying on him. They're confirming, yep, he actually has our money. Then, notice the huge shift at nighttime. Vikram's whole arrogant tough guy act completely shatters into crippling paranoia. He literally refuses to step outside to help his mom with chores. He demands every single door be locked tight, and he's fearfully claiming he sees ghosts and things moving in the dark. The guy is terrified. And then, morning comes. Mysterious, well-dressed strangers show up right at Mahendra's broken house, demanding to see Vikram. The trap is snapped shut.
That leads us right into Section 5, Cruel Truth and Honesty.
These strangers don't even bother with Vikram. They go straight to his proud parents, and they just lay out the brutal truth, totally shattering Mahendra's illusion. Turns out, Vikram never had some fancy corporate job in the city. He was never the successful businessman. No. Actually, scratch that. It's way worse. He got involved with a highly dangerous illegal gang. And to top it off, he wasn't even loyal to them. He betrayed his own gang, stole their dirty money, and ran back to his rural village, foolishly thinking he could just hide out there. I mean, think about it. He put his entire family in mortal danger, just so he could play the role of the wealthy son for one single afternoon.
And when he's finally cornered by these gang members right in front of his dad, Vikram's bravado completely evaporates. He says, "I made a mistake. I will return all your money." It's a pathetic, desperate confession. The exact same guy who, just yesterday, was lecturing his mom about village dust and throwing wads of cash at the local butcher, now he's cowering, basically begging for his life, and openly admitting he's guilty. There's no misunderstanding here, no defense. The truth is just totally out in the open.
Now, the absolute emotional anchor of this whole explainer is how the father reacts to this. Mahendra says, and this is heartbreaking, "I ate meat pulao in this broken house with that illegal sin money." You have to remember, Mahendra's a man who has lived his entire life in desperate, literally starving poverty. But he never once compromised his morals. He never stole, he never cheated, and now it hits him. He realizes that the greatest meal of his life, the proudest moment he ever had hosting his neighbors, it was entirely funded by crime. He feels physically sick. In an instant, that meat pulao transforms from this ultimate symbol of his son's success into a symbol of utter moral rot and just deep, lasting shame.
Mahendra's reaction here is swift, and it is absolute. First, he immediately demands the full truth directly from Vikram. He absolutely refuses to cover for him. Then, upon hearing it, he doesn't make excuses. He just fully accepts the horrible reality of what his son did. And this is the most powerful part. He refuses to harbor a criminal. He actually hands his own son over to face the law and the consequences. And ultimately, he disowns him. Mahendra tells his wife that their honest reputation is ruined, and from that day forward they have no son. He straight up declares he would rather live in his broken, crumbling house forever than ever eat food bought with dirty money again. It's just this staggering, incredible display of personal integrity, totally triumphing over the desire for wealth.
So what does this all mean? That brings us to the core of what this story is really trying to teach us. What is more valuable, ill-gotten luxury or honest poverty? We just watched Vikram choose the shortcut. He chose illegal luxury, and it ended up costing him his freedom, his family, and his pride. But Mahendra, despite his intense, everyday suffering, he chose honest poverty. And at the end of the day, that was the only thing that allowed him to keep his soul intact. As we've seen in this explainer, a broken house built on truth is infinitely stronger than a feast built on lies. So I'm going to leave you with this to reflect on. In your own life, when the pressure really starts to mount, which path do you choose? Thanks for joining me for this deep dive, guys, and keep seeking the truth behind the stories.